What's up, my ninjas? So it's been a minute since I've done a tutorial, and I'm back. We're going to go ahead and create a 3D intro from scratch using some simple tricks in Cinema 4D. First things first, just some basic navigation. If you hold the Alt key and your left click, you can rotate globally. Hold the Alt key and you press down on your scroll wheel. You can move up and down, moving forward or backward. You can move. If you use your right click and your Alt key, you can move inward and outward. So that's just pretty simple maneuvering. Makes it a lot easier than having to go all the way up here. Sometimes it's necessary to go up here and use your orbital tool. You're in and out, you're moving, but it's not always necessary. So first things first, we're going to go ahead and hit File, Merge Objects. Wait for it to load because my computer is slow. Now, I don't have the original logo that I created in the first tutorial. So what we're going to go ahead and do is use the recreation of the Psycho logo that I made. Just not my OneDrive documents, I want my regular documents. Go under the Psycho folder, logo, source, and grab our paths. Now remember, that's your Illustrator 8 file, not your regular Illustrator CC save file, but your Illustrator 8 save file. Hit open. You want to make sure Connect Splines is not checked. You can group them if you want, and I just leave it at 1 scale. Hit OK. Now it'll take a moment, but it'll toss it in here. And they are, for some reason, imported way out of my scene. So down here, under position, I'm going to hit 0, tab, 0, and hit enter. Apply that. Ta-da. Now we can see our logo. Now, from here, I'm going to go ahead and click on path 1, hold shift and click path 2, drag it outside of this null. In Cinema 4D, we call groups a null. I don't know why, but that's what it's called. Just go ahead and delete that because you don't need it anymore. Now, there's one of two things we can do here. Now, one, we can go ahead and just make these both our own extrude NURBS, so that way we can actually make really fancy animations where we'll have the top kind of rotate, the bottom rotate, and kind of place together, but I'm not too worried about it. Actually, you know what? Yeah, we'll go ahead and do that. So first things first, you go ahead and grab your first path. And we're going to double click that and name it top. No, that one's the bottom, so this would be bottom. And then name this one top. Drag them like this. And right in here where you see the subdivision surface, it's next to your pen tool and next to your array. We're going to want to go ahead and click on this, hold, hit extrude. Now we can drag the spline into the extrude, kind of like it's acting like a group in a way. Now we're going to want to go ahead and beef this up a little bit because, as you can see, 20 is not really all that deep. It's pretty thin. We don't want a 20 centimeter. So we're going to go ahead and try something like, 75. It'll take a second for it to load, but it will. Bear with me here, sorry. Alright. Now from here, Control C, Control V, delete the top on the extra one, and ta-da, now we have a top and a bottom extrude. I'm going to go ahead and name this top X and bottom X. If you're annoyed with me going through and renaming everything, Organization's important on here. You need to do it. So what you're seeing here is without a cap. When you go into the caps under the extrude options, if you just do regular cap, it's really flat and boring, and that's just, it looks like crap. So we're gonna do a fillet cap for both the front and the back. Bring the steps up to about, I don't know, 5, and then we'll do a centimeter radius of 2. That's pretty decent. It just gives it a little bit of that extra clean and oomph behind it. So we're then going to go ahead and go to the bottom and do the same thing. Pretty straightforward. 5, 2, 5, 2. Okay, so from here we want to make our lights. So there's 100 different ways to do this, although what I found is the most useful is just clicking on the light, and you're going to see it looks all weird and wonky. What we're going to go ahead and do is go under our pen tool, grab a circle, bring that bad boy in here. Then going to use our rotate tool. You rotate it at a funky angle. 60 looks good. And we'll go ahead and hold shift while we're pulling outward, make it a decent size. I was just thinking, this is how we would rig the camera actually. So we'll just name that camera, and we'll come back to that in a minute. So with the light, I want to go under here, MoGraph, click on clutter, go back to our movement tool, and we want to drag the light into the cloner. Now, from here, there's a ton of options we can do. Right now it's set to linear, we don't want that, we want radial. And we want to have this aligned to the XZ axis. Now, our radius, let's bump that up from 50 to something like 750. Maybe a little bit more. I'll do like 1450. Okay, that's pretty good. And then we'll up that to about 7 count, which will give us a pretty decent iteration. Alright, so from here, for our lights, we can do all sorts of things. I'm gonna leave it on the default for the type and for the intensity and color, because I don't really want to mess around too much with that. Let's try some shadow maps soft. Okay. I'll actually go ahead and make both of these extrudes just a little bit deeper because they're not as deep as I would like. So let's try 95. That's pretty decent. Okay. Now go up to your little clapper up here with the gear icon, which is your render settings. We want our output to be 1920 by 1080 by 1080. Leave your resolution at 720. That's the screen DPI. You don't need it any higher. You're not printing this. It's just not necessary. Don't bother with it. Now go under your save. And under your save, we're going to go ahead and click on PNG. And we're going to create a little folder. Once you hit these 3 little dots here, this is where you're going to save your file. It's going to take a minute. Computer's slow. I'll take a sip of my coffee while I'm waiting. Ow, buddy. deloading death. Okay. So under our save file, we're gonna go to Documents, in my case, and I'm just gonna hit Control-Shift-N. Some of you may not have known that, but that's a shortcut to make a new folder. Very, very useful. So we're gonna do intro tutorial. That's what I'm gonna name mine. Name yours whatever you want. Double click. Something I always like to do is make a new folder, PNG sequence. Source, if I can spell correctly. And then ready to use. Under our PNG sequence, we're going to go ahead and name this tut. Hit enter, and that's saved. Make sure you have your alpha channel checked, otherwise you're going to get a weird ass black background, which you don't want at all when you're trying to make intros. Doesn't work very well. Leave your depth and your name by default. It isn't necessary, but there's all sorts of different naming conventions you can use. Play around with it, do what you want. I'm going to leave it on default because there's really no need. On our anti-aliasing, go ahead and set that to best. 1x1, 2x2. If you have a better computer than me, feel free to up that. I would say don't go above like 4x4 because anything above 4x4 is really not noticeable difference. Under your effects, we want to hit ambient occlusion and global illumination. Now we can leave this on default and it gives pretty decent results. I would say, yeah, we're just gonna leave this. Okay, so that, and our last portion of lighting, we want to go up here where it says floor, sky, and I happen to have a HDRI map that I like to use. Now, double click on this new material we just created. And we're going to take off the reflectance. Oh. Open it. Thank you. Untick our color. Untick our reflectance. Tick on your luminance. And in my case, I'm just going to load this image. I'll leave the image down below in the description, a download link to it. I got it from HDR Heaven, or Haven, however you want to pronounce it. And it's just a nice little studio. You hit yes on this, you can hit no on this. I prefer to hit yes because then if I send the project file out to anybody, it's already right there. Ta-da! You have now made an HDRI map. We're going to go ahead and drag that onto our sky. Now, the important thing you want to do, right click on your sky, go under Cinema 4D tags, compositing. Compositing is your best friend. Seen by camera, uncheck it. Now, hold the control button, drag that to your cloner, drag that to your camera, and now nothing is going to be seen except for your logo. Okay, so now we're going to set up our camera. You want to hold on the camera and do a target camera. Now, see this little icon here? If you click that, now you're in your camera view. If you untick it, you're no longer in your camera view and you can actually edit it if you see fit. Come on. Work with me here. Okay. Now, something I like to do, so we're just going to be doing a quick little animation here. I'm going to set my focal length to about 15 at the beginning. very end, first you want to make sure that you're taking it to do a keyframe. And I like to do auto keying. Just make sure you turn it off after you're done setting a keyframe, otherwise you're going to mess with a bunch of other stuff you don't need to mess with. We're going to change our focal length at the end about an 80mm. Take a keyframe. Actually, I'll reverse those. So we do 80 at the beginning, and we'll set it to 15 at the end. Okay. Now, from here, I'm going to untick my auto keying so I don't screw anything up. Right click on my camera, Cinema 4D tags, and align to spline. I'm going to click on this little selection icon. It looks like a cursor. Click on that, and then you want to click on our camera spline we made earlier. Now, if we click on this, we're going to want this to be a little bit bigger. Okay. Not that direction, probably. Good. Now, if we click on our align to spline, remove this position tag, show us rotating a bit. And this creates sort of a cinematic type deal, cinematic feel. So on the very end, I'm gonna want a position of about we'll call it 15. The rotation tool, grab our camera. Upward a bit. Now, I'm going to click on my align to spline. Set this down about a 0%. Very beginning. Set a keyframe. Click on this. I'll double check to make sure that that actually set a keyframe. Now we want to go to our 90 frames, and I'll set that at, let's try 25. That's good. Okay. Alright, so we have the base fundamentals here. Obviously mess around with everything that I've shown you here. Change values, add more cameras. I'll come up with another tutorial at some point to do, show you how to set up a stage, which will allow you to do different cameras. But for right now, this is pretty normal. Okay, so on our camera, okay, want to select this keyframe, change it from spline to linear. On this keyframe, spline to linear. Click on this, and we want to click on our keyframes here. Now the reason for this, and I'll go ahead and play this animation through so you can see. It starts off immediately. Now it's not going to play properly, but the idea is that you're constantly moving. It's a constant motion. Now, I just want to go with a pretty simple metallic material, and we're going to apply this material to both of these. Now, I'm going to hit my enable axis, which will allow me with my selection tool, my movement tool, change these so it's kind of like the center of gravity of the logo. I'll do that for both the bottom and the top. You don't want to be rotating it based off of center of both. That's work very well. Because I kind of want to make this a little more interesting by bending this backwards ever so slightly. Backward. Kind of line it up. Okay. Now from here, we're going to double click on our material. Name this metal. Okay. So under reflectance, we want to change this from blend legacy. Come on. X. Change the attenuation. I'm not really sure how to pronounce it, obviously, based off of how I just pronounced it, but we want to change this value from additive to metal. We bring our roughness down to about 10% or so. A little bit over, a little bit under isn't a big deal. We want a reflection strength to be 100. Specular strength to be about, we'll go for about 38. Under texture on the layer, for now, but doctor. Over to titanium, but that's pretty good. Okay. Under texture on our color, and to layer. On the layer, shader, nice. Another shader. Ammo. Another shader of noise. Like gradient. I said noise. And another noise. Okay. So this first one here, we're going to click on it. And we want to change the noise from noise to something like FBM. Relative scale to like 250 by 50 by 250. Back to color. Click on this next one, and we're going to set it to multiply. 34, 35. Change the noise type. Pezzo. Actually, no, let's not do that. We will do. Stems, that's good, okay. Let's change this to 75 by 50 by 75. Back to our color, go to layer. Out there should be good. On our original overlay. Click on that'll work. Sema. Change the global relative scale to 35 by 20 by 35. Back to our layer. Now do an effect. No. Lamp color. Okay, so what this is doing is kind of constraining our colors a bit. We also want to do brightness, contrast, and gamma. Gamma. So down to about a 0.6. Yeah. 7? Yeah. Contrast up, down. Brightness down by just a very slight changes, but it works. Now, copy the shader, bump map, texture, paste shader, strength down to about 10%, and up. That's in here. And we're going to go ahead and change our colors to all of these. Go. Pretty simple texture. And drag it onto here. Do UV mapping. We're gonna want to set that to cubic, seamless. Same for the top extrusion. So just hold Control, hold down. Create one more material. Set this to like 25% on the strength there. Try 10. Create a new material. This one we're just going to set of white. Very simple material. Set that on top extrusion, cubic, seamless, and under the selection tag, we're going to change that to R1. Copy it down here, copy it over, and set the second copy to R2. Copy it upward. There. Now, very simple. Very, very simple. Render. I'm gonna hit render view. Take a minute, I'll come back once it's finished. Okay, this is taking too long to render, so what we're actually going to go ahead and do is uncheck the normal map, bump map, our color, undo about 73. Now from here, I'm going to go into my render settings. Under ambient occlusion, high environment. Here, also go to my output, change this from current frame to all frames, capturing everything. Go under my metal again. Clear for now. Conductor to none. Texture on the layer color to A for now. Set the mix mode to 5. And we're going to go ahead and hit this render to picture view. This is going to render out the intro itself, the whole thing. Before I do that though, one last adjustment. I am going to go under global illumination change this from default to no pre-pass because it's just going to make it easier and quicker for me to render. I wouldn't change it if I were you, unless you want to set it to a higher standard, like, for example, exterior HDR image. That would be useful since we have an HDR, but otherwise, just don't touch it. I'm going to, simply for the purposes of this tutorial, I want it to take less time to render. I'll be back when it's finished. Alright, I'm back. And we are fully rendered out. Very, very simple cinematic. But it just does the job. There are some small, minimal changes I made. For one, I went ahead and adjusted where I had the top portion because the way it was set up, it was too steep of a contrast between the lower portion of the P and the upper portion. So I had to change that. Sorry if you guys hear my cat. And other than that, I did end up going back to default settings, and I did one by one on the min level and max level and the anti-aliasing. Either way, that's just a simple little animation made from scratch. Lightroom, camera setup, animation of the camera, and that's about all you would need to know to make a general purpose intro that isn't just cookie cutter crap from a template. Hope you guys enjoyed. Peace.